Bwong. Holy crap.
Hey guys, the lore this week, as you may have guessed by the title of the video, is on Shelob. We chose to do Shelob this week because the Shadow of War game does some things that are interesting and different with her, in a similar fashion to how Celebrimbor's story diverges from the original Tolkien series in the Shadow of Mordor game. If you're interested in hearing more on that, click the card in the top right of the screen right now to go watch our video on Celebrimbor. We're going to quickly go over Shelob's basic history and backstory up to the known end of her life, then go on to her as a creature, what she can do in the books versus her abilities in-game. As a quick side note, Taryn won't be voicing in this video due to other life scheduling issues, but he will be with us in spirit as the video editor and as the scripter of this video as well. So to begin with, if you've watched our other videos on Celebrimbor, you know that the changes made to him mostly involved the final pieces of his life and history, with most changes to his abilities and powers coming after his death, and thus beyond when he would have been mentioned in Tolkien's work. In contrast, Shelob's changes mostly revolve around her capabilities, with the game altering very little of her story, except in one or two cases, where the game seems to contradict itself or is framed strangely in the storytelling so that it seems contradictory. Yeah, it's a weird moment, and we'll mention it in a bit. So Shelob is a giant spider-like creature. We say spider-like because, as most who've read the books or seen the movies know, she's not technically just a giant spider. She has humanoid levels of intelligence, if not more, a poisonous stinger, whereas most, if not all, real spiders deliver their venom through a bite, as well as a few more mystical characteristics due to her lineage. She was born spawn of Ungoliant, sometime during the First Age. We'll speak here on Ungoliant, as Shelob's parentage is important to understanding her abilities and characteristics, but we're keeping it short because, though Ungoliant is both fascinating and terrifying enough to warrant her own video, we're here to talk about Shelob, her daughter. So, Ungoliant, also known as the Primordial Spider and the Gloom Weaver, that's Gloom Weaver, was an ancient and powerful being that assumed the shape of a large, man-sized and later much larger spider. Her exact origins are unknown, some believing her to be a Maiar, one of the minor godlike entities that exist throughout Tolkien myth, the same sort of creatures as Sauron or his predecessor, Morgoth. Yes, Sauron was the second Dark Lord of Middle-earth. No, really, Tolkien myth goes deep. Others believe she came from the darkness of the void outside the world itself, and that she was perhaps an incarnation of darkness and emptiness itself. Each idea is equally likely, but the important notes for Ungoliant, for our purposes, are that she was ageless, very intelligent, spun webs of unlight, a substance that absorbs light rather than concealing it, or being banished by it like the shadows would. She ate light itself, as well as anything that gave off light, was described as always being hungry, and was incredibly powerful, especially towards the end of her life. Now Ungoliant bred with other, lesser giant spiders, spawning giant spiders that were larger, smarter, and stronger than their more mortal parents. The spawn of Ungoliant, of which Shelob was the mightiest and most well-known. Shelob was, it is presumed, born in a great unlight-covered mountain pass in which Ungoliant layered for many, many years. One that was flooded during an event known as the War of Wrath. She would escape the disaster and travel to Mordor, making her way to the high mountains, specifically the pass of Cirith Ungol, where she made a great layer of webs and interconnected maze-like tunnels that could be used to both brood and to catch prey. All of this was well before, centuries in fact before, Sauron himself would make Mordor his home. Even before the first stone of his fortress, Barad-dûr, was laid. A note of interest, because that fortress apparently took a full 600 years to finish when it was first built, Shelob was there in the mountains, devouring everything that came her way, man, elf, dwarf, orc, or beast, for all of that time, and even in the thousands of years after Sauron's initial defeat and all the way through his rise to power, this area is the one piece of history that the games kinda sorta mess with. If you acquire all of the Shelob Web of Fate collectibles, you unlock a short video which involves her being betrayed by Sauron and shows the two of them inside some fortress, presumably Barad-dûr, before the Dark Lord throws Shelob to the wolves, so to speak. And afterward, she is shown scurrying off to her cave to take up her place in the mountains, bitter and angry with Sauron the Deceiver. The framing of the video itself, at least to us, seems to indicate that she palled around with Sauron for some amount of time, and kind of makes it seem as if she didn't make her home in the mountain pass until after that betrayal. But the text that is attached to one of the video pieces indicates that she did in fact make her home in Cirith Ungol before Sauron's fortress was built, which seems odd. While it's true that this seeming inconsistency could be explained away as, while the two were allies, she lived in or near Sauron's home, and she simply laired in Cirith Ungol before and after that point, the other divergence here is the alliance of Sauron and Shelob itself. In the books, Sauron was aware of Shelob's presence, tolerated and even occasionally delighted in her presence there in the mountains, considering her as an excellent guard for the pass, and a favorite pet to which he would toss the occasional prisoner for his own amusement. But that was the extent of their relationship. In the Shadow of War game, the relationship is different. Again, text accompanying the Web of Fate videos would support Tolkien's original works by mentioning Sauron thought of Shelob as a pet, which she tolerated, but simply by the two of them having a relationship, one that Sauron could tarnish, shatter, and betray, the nature of that master-pet dynamic was clearly both closer and different in the game than it was in the books. Either way, Shelob was still there in Cirith Ungol as Middle-earth fought to defeat Sauron a second time, and was arguably one of the greatest trials that Sam and Frodo would have to face in order to make their way to Mordor. Her encounter with those two hobbits is the end of her known life. What became of her afterwards is actually something of a minor mystery. After being something close to gutted by Sam while he fought her off, trying to save and protect both Frodo and himself, she fled, retreating back into her lair. Later, when Sam wears the One Ring, it's noted that he can hear her sounds of pain all the way back in her lair thanks to the many powers that the ring grants Sam while he wears it. But that is the last we hear of her. Whether she died of her wounds, lived on until all of the magic left Middle-earth, or ceased to be in some other manner, no one actually knows. Which leaves us with what she is capable of. In the books, she is simply a giant intelligent spider, capable of spinning webs of purest black that are stronger and sturdier than normal webbing, and which help disperse light, though it did not eat it like her mother's unlight webs would. This and her other natural abilities shrouded her lair in inky, smoky shadow. She also had a poisonous stinger and could somehow communicate with other creatures, as indicated by her making a deal with Gollum, which spared her his life, and was ultimately the reason he brought Sam and Frodo through her home. In the games, however, she is capable of far more, and the game creators explained this by referencing her lineage, which is why we spoke of Ungoliant earlier. As we've said, some believe Ungoliant to have been a Maiar, and like other Maiar, she is mentioned as having chosen the shape of a great spider. And, as such beings were capable of taking many forms, with Shelob being Ungoliant's direct offspring, the creators of the Shadow of War felt there was no reason she could not have been gifted with similar powers, as she was already indicated as having other, lesser versions of Ungoliant's capabilities, including immortality. And if it let them tell a more interesting story, then why not? As you may have already inferred, she has the ability to shapeshift, taking the forms of a giant spider, a humanoid woman clad in black, and a hybridization of the two. She also has the power to peer into the future and show others those same visions through a manipulation of what she calls the Web of Fate. She still spins webs, and they appear white and gray just as normal webs do. She still appears to be able to cloak her lair in shadow and mist. Interestingly, the Web of Fate texts also indicate that in this version of Shelob's character, she, like her mother, thirsts for and feeds upon light, not just those physical beings who wander into her webs, which seems a logical vice considering her increased levels of power. Lastly, though the exact nature or strength of it is unknown, she clearly possesses some form of nebulous mystical might, as she is able to trap and seemingly injure Celebrimbor, despite his being a wraith, as well as do battle with the ringwraiths, causing them minor harm, even impaling them with her giant spider legs. Though harming the Nazgul may not require mystical might, as others have been shown to do it outside of the games, like when Aragorn fought off the Nazgul in the Fellowship of the Ring, or when Éowyn actually slew the Witch King in the Return of the King. Separate from this game or the story is the phone game. There's a phone game app where she uses those mystical powers to send bolts of darkness and to summon her brood, small spiders that you're able to use and attack. That same ability is given to the in-game Talion and Celebrimbor, where he is able to summon her brood, small, to her, quote-unquote small, spiders that are able to jump onto and poison or kill normal orcs and uruks. And that's basically Shelob. She's well known for continuing Ungoliant's legacy into the Third Age. In fact, those giant spiders that Bilbo and the dwarves encounter in Mirkwood in The Hobbit, those are Shelob's brood. More grown up than the phone game or the video game itself, but that's her brood. She's a big, mean, intelligent spider with genuinely deific parentage, and adding to the multiple layers of Tolkien mythology, like her mother and like many other beings and events from the Tolkien myth, she now has more than one variation, both of her tail and her capabilities. So, what do you think of her adjustments for Shadow of War? Are they cool? Should she have been left alone? Do you care? Let us know what you think about this and anything else you feel like discussing in the comments down below. And if you want to hear more lore from Shadows of War, Tolkien lore, or any other game, let us know that as well. If you liked this video, please send us a like. If you'd like to watch more from us on this and other topics, please feel free to subscribe. And in the meantime, this has been Isaac from 2 Men and a Mic, signing off. Hey guys, you can click the link in the left for our last lore video.
You can click the link on the right for our last Let's Play.
And right here in the middle, that orb, you can hit that to subscribe.
Also, ring the bell if you want to be notified when we post a new video.
This is 2 Men and a Mic. Thanks for watching.